Hi.
Hello and welcome to session 2 of the Storytelling Advantage Tea Talks with Rance. That would be me. My name is Rance Green, and I am the author of that book right there, Instructional Story Design. Have any of you read the book Instructional Story Design yet? No. Okay, well, this is your chance. I started this private community within the Learn Ops community so that I could meet L&D leaders where they were in the L&D process, meeting with folks who were interested in humanizing that process and the role of story within the whole process from intake all the way through to sharing data. And we're going to cover all of that in these sessions throughout the duration of however long the Storytelling Advantage Tea Talks exist. So this is a long haul type of group where we're going to be tackling little bits at a time throughout each session. So I'm thrilled that you're here. It's so good to see you, Jen. So good to see Allison, Malin, Kelly. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Marley. We're going to start today's session off with a word from our sponsor, the Cognota. So let me share a short video with you.
This session is sponsored by Cognota. Still struggling with fragmented L&D tools? Transform learning operations into business impact. Cognota streamlines learning operations within one platform. For more information, a link is provided in the chat.
And here is the Cognota link in the chat. So and Marley is here from Cognota. Hello, Marley. Welcome. Do you have any words of greetings for us today?
Yeah, just a big hello and thanks for having this great second meeting, Rance. We're really excited to be here and learn more. And if anybody has any questions about Cognota, feel free to message me. I'm always around in the community. I am the community manager, so you'll see me poking around, commenting, interacting with different things. So really excited to be here. Thanks, Rance.
You, Marley. All right, let's dive into the very question that we're here to answer today. And this is going to be kind of a foundational session that will lay the groundwork for many sessions to come. For those who missed our first session 2 weeks ago, the recording is available within the Storytelling Advantage community. There is a tab called Recordings, and you can watch that recording right there. To catch you up, you can also kind of get the content, a major part of the content from that. This is an extra resource, and I put that in the chat. And this will take you to the Instructional Story Design book page, but it also has a 30-minute video right at the top of that page that gives you an overview of the instructional story design process. And the instructional story design process is only a sliver of what we're going to be covering in these sessions, because we're going to be talking about the entire L&D process. I have shared the link in the chat, not a link, a document in the chat that's going to serve as our handout for this session. I'm going to put it in there one more time for those of you who may have missed it at the very beginning. So go ahead and save that handout, open it up. And we're going to be using this over the period of next several sessions together to serve as an anchor for our discussions. One of these discussions that we're going to be having in these start with a poll within the Storytelling Advantage community. And I'm going to give you a link to the poll so that you can go ahead and click it. And if you haven't answered it already, some of you already have, go ahead and answer that poll. And the poll is simply, what part of the L&D process, what point of connection within the L&D process is most challenging for you. And if you don't mind taking a moment to also just put in a comment based on your answer, that would be great too. If you're getting any kind of error message, like you don't have access to this, that's because you haven't been admitted into the Storytelling Advantage, and you can just request to come in and I'll let you in.
Rance, just a quick question there. Are we supposed to be able to just open that link and go into it? Because I can't seem to even click into the link.
If you haven't been admitted already into the Storytelling Advantage private community, that may be. So you can do that by submitting a request to join the Storytelling Advantage community, and I'll immediately let you in.
How do I submit a request?
Click on the Storytelling Advantage private.
I can't click on anything.
Go to Cognota's Learn Ops. Maybe Marley, would you mind putting a link in there to the Storytelling Advantage, and or even an invite, a link for an invite to people to join, and then you'll automatically be joined in with that link.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Let me just pop that into the chat and I'll help you out.
Thank you so much, Marley. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. And so the question is, so for those of you who may be having technical difficulty, the question is, what point of connection in the L&D process is most challenging for you? And if you'll look at the handout, you will see, let me grab my copy of the handout. It looks like this. And you'll see 6 categories here. The first category is, you won't see all of these on the poll. The poll is a little more, general, but I've divided it into 6 categories: our story, intake, consult, interview, design, and shared data. So I want you to be thinking about these 6 categories, these points of connection that you have with people who are outside of the L&D process but interact with you. And I'd like for you to think about, what is my most challenging, what's the most challenging piece for me in this L&D process? And we're going to go into a breakout, and I'd like for you to discuss that as a group. So as you've been giving some time to think about that question, answering the poll, on the handout, you will see a QR code. It's like this, right here. And you can scan that QR code, or if it's up on your screen, you can also click it, and it will take you straight to a Menti poll. I'll share the link with that Menti poll in the chat as well, because we're going to be using this to collect answers during the discussion in our breakouts. So there is the Menti poll in the chat. That's fine, Rebecca. You can keep your camera off. All right. So during this first breakout, I'm going to bring up the poll on my end and share it with you, just so we're all on the same page. Just a moment. Lots of moving parts. It's all right. We're gonna make it. So when you bring up the poll, and let me go ahead and share this poll so that it will give you the option to answer these questions. The first page you will see is the Storytelling Advantage. This is our second Tea Talk, Humanizing the L&D Process. And this is going to help us unearth some current practices. You can freely navigate through this poll. You don't really need to at this point. I will give you some instructions at the end on if you would like to keep going, you certainly can. But in the breakout, I'd like for you to take 30 seconds to give introductions to one another. And then I'd like for you to go around and answer that question. What's the most challenging point of connection in the L&D process and why? Right, so do you have any questions about what we're going to be doing in these breakout sessions? As you discuss with one another about those challenging points of connection in the L&D process and sharing those reasons why, I'd like for you to record your insights from that breakout on the next slide. And then when we come back into the main room, we'll have some group discussions about those challenging points of connection, and that'll set us up then for the next part of this, right? If you have any questions at any point throughout, just ping me. I'll be visiting your breakout groups. Let's do 3 breakout groups. You'll get an invitation to join a breakout group, and then you can just, once you go there, introduce yourself and then answer that question. All right. We'll see you in about 10 minutes. Welcome back,
Rance, I'm
everyone.
confused. I don't see a poll. How do I get to a poll?
Me neither. Me neither.
So on the Menti poll, did you guys open the Menti poll?
Yep, it's in the chat. It's one of the links.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah, right there. And once you click that link, you can go to the slide that says share an insight from the breakout that stood out to you. Okay, good. I'm seeing some thumbs up on that. That's good. If you are having trouble finding it, you can put your insights in the chat of Zoom as well. So let's see what some of you have said here. Understanding from the stakeholders on how humans learn. Okay, so yeah, your stakeholders don't know this information and they're trusting or maybe not trusting that you do understand how humans learn. They're definitely relying on you for that expertise. And so I think that what that comment comes down to is a matter of trust. How much do stakeholders trust you to train people to understand how people learn? Usage of project management to have clear expectations. Yeah, that's an awesome kind of auxiliary skill. It's not even auxiliary, really. It's kind of essential to our roles in L&D to have some project management skills, because we are taking a project all the way from intake through design, development, implementation. We're tracking results and we're sharing those results with people. So that's a large and long-term project. So yeah, absolutely. Project management skills are needed. L&D is seen as order takers. So if you're in your organization, the L&D function is seen as somewhat of an order taker, then it creates a little bit of a cycle that's difficult to get out of, because you are delivering on those orders and reinforcing then that, hey, I am an order taker, right? And so somewhere along that cycle has to be broken, and we're going to discuss some strategies and how to break that cycle so that you are not seen as an order taker, but rather as a business partner. Not addressing the root issues, rather focusing on the symptoms. This is a very common problem among stakeholders and subject matter experts, that they are so engrossed in their own pain or in their own processes that it's difficult for them to see the big picture and where the source of that problem might be coming from, or the source of the symptoms might be coming from. And so that's our gift, right? That's our gift to subject matter experts, to stakeholders, that we help them to find that root problem. And we're doing them a service by doing that. And we're doing ourselves a service too, because if we are spending our time creating products that don't solve problems, we become expendable. One of you wrote that we have a hard time getting people to really hit the core of the issue people need to be developed on. Yeah. So that goes back to root problem and, figuring out what the right solution is. Training will be part of that solution, possibly, maybe not. When it is part of the solution, it usually is only part of the solution. And that's something that we as an industry could be maybe a little bit better about acknowledging and setting expectations for. Like, this training will not solve the entire problem, but it will solve a piece of that problem. I am not alone. Yes, you are not alone. The connection point with the stakeholder business owner is difficult to establish effectively. Yes, yes, it is. But it is something that we're called upon to do. It's part of our job. And so we will do it, and we will do it with excellency. And that's part of why we come together at the Advantage, the Storytelling Advantage, is to develop some of those strategies, practice some of those skills, workshop some of them. And that's what we'll be doing at these meetings. Unconscious bias and blind spot coaching, good. Yeah, if they are seeing things one way but not taking into consideration the full picture, you're a great outside eye that can help them to see where their blind spots are. Parsing the most critical information to be transferred. Yes, and you will hear me. You will hear me say this a lot. It's a very big part of the book. And that is, when we train people to do observable actions. And so if there are not observable actions involved, that information may be important or it may not be. But that's not the most important. The most important is, what are we training them to do? Could we take a video of them doing that? That's the most critical information. That's the skills that we need to be able to train them on. So excellent point.
What happens in a compliance training where, say, the objective is to make the audience less racist, less xenophobic, less basically an attitude that needs to be changed? How do you measure or observe that?
Yep. Through action. How does that show itself in action? And what are the actions you're expecting people to do? When you can distill compliance training down to performance, then you have something to train on. Otherwise, it's just a marketing thing, just awareness.
How in the world are you able to observe that? If somebody is xenophobic, do you set up some sort of artificial situation where they're in a room with somebody who is a minority member, or do you track them there, observe them through an entire day of it seems to be expensive.
Sure. So you're talking about two different things, I believe. One is discovering what the root problem is. And so
Right.
the root problem is something also observable. If there is an attitude, that attitude is exhibiting itself somehow.
Right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't know that there was a problem. So that part of observation comes at the beginning in the problem solving. The observable action that we're training people to do. So I would go back to your subject matter expert and say, okay, what is someone who is not racist, What are they actually doing? And what do we expect them to do? And drill down to observable actions. Training people to be aware of things, or, hey, you need to think like this, is ineffective because there's no action to be taken. So drill down to those observable actions. I did compliance training for many years, training on similar topics as that, and it was all performance-based. You can
Thank you, Rance.
Sure, sure. Another comment, storytelling that brings the sense of humanity to the fore and uncover key issues. Yes. That humanizing stories are a wonderful way to humanize any situation, right? Not just training, any kind of interaction, communication, and uncover key issues. Yeah, when you start inviting subject matter experts and stakeholders to tell stories, that's when root problems often surface. That's where the real root problems start to be discovered. Give them space and time to realize what they might not have given the necessary attention or might have missed. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they need just the respect of some space, some time. And that comes with relationship. So awesome, guys. Oh, I thought I was sharing my screen. I hope that you all were seeing those comments as well. Okay.
Not yet.
I am so sorry. Do you see the comments of others on these? Do you see all this? When you submit your answer, you do see these? You don't see these. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I was sharing. So I mentioned about inviting subject matter stakeholders and subject matter experts to share their expertise. And I heard in one of the breakout rooms, something that really, first of all, Anna talked about learning how to know what stories to listen for and what stories to tell. And then in her group, Anne described a method that she's using that invites stakeholders and subject matter experts to share their stories in an interesting way. So I'd like, Anna, for you to share a little bit about your process and how you start the storytelling ball rolling. So Anne, would you mind? And Mariah.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was Anna going first. Sorry. Sure. So let me use the example actually that John just shared. So I have this client. They are experiencing a culture of racism and there's no inclusivity. So staff come from different nationalities, different countries. And so there's all these nuanced conversations, behavior, and things like that. And so, just as an example, to create awareness, I have them go into small groups and talk to each other about their influences as they were growing up and just share, who their influences were, what those were, what their aspirations were when they were much younger, and what that looks like today. And when we get back into the bigger group, the common conversation was, oh, I am so surprised. I never looked at my colleague in this way before, basically in their humanity. I only saw them in terms of their role within the organization. Mm. And so about 6-7 months down the line, I then was able to run a survey and just find out the effectiveness of the work I had done with them, which included basically workshopping and then group coaching, and then they were left to go and take some action. And so when I was now reviewing them, actually, it was supposed to have been 6 months, but we did it, I think, 9 months down the line. it was very interesting to note that I surveyed about 63 people, and I was actually doing it one-on-one, not just sending out the survey. And just about all of them said that there was now more consciousness of language, that I have to watch the language I use when I'm with others, recognizing that it could separate rather than unify. And the whole thing around the storytelling was because I realized many times we give mental assent to a lot of information, but if we can move it from the being cognitive to a heart posture, then we can see transformation, which is really the space I hold for transformation. And so that's the example I'm having.
Wow. And so that's on topic, John, with the thing that you just mentioned. I love so many things that you just said, and appreciate you sharing that, especially the words that you said about seeing people as their role and not their humanity. And I think that that summarizes the mission, my personal mission in life is to help people see the humanity of others and not just see them as an intellect, a brain, a role, or a type of person, a stereotype. And also that when you had the storytelling exercise, people were keenly aware of their language. And that when we are able to speak in the language of stories, those barriers come down and we begin to care for one another. We begin to, if we're honest in that room with one another, we begin to care for each other. We begin to care for that person's well-being, for their cause, and look for ways to advocate for them. I've experienced this for myself over and over again. I often will just invite someone who is very unlike me into a conversation and just tell stories so I can learn about them and start caring about them, and they can learn about me too, and they can care about me. And I also love the move from mental assent of information, which is the heart of so much training, to more of a heart posture. I like that you use the word posture there. Am I getting that right? A heart posture? Yeah. Yeah, like this is more than just like me getting information. This is about me taking this information to heart and doing something about it. So, oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I would like to hear, from others. Yeah, I love the discussions that were happening. Some of you were having cathartic moments where you're just like, you just needed to get it out and say, hey, I'm frustrated. That's awesome. That's what we're here for, to listen to each other. Some of you had some cool strategies that you were sharing and techniques. Others just like some persistent problems that you were facing. I'd like to talk about that humanity piece for a moment. Where do you see moments in your process where perhaps the humanity has been dropped and has become much more transactional? Would anybody like to share some place in my L&D process where things are just like very, very transactional, and the humanity of the process is dropped?
I can tell you that I sometimes see too much humanity and that they're afraid to do things because they don't want to hurt somebody, or they don't know how to do it. So I'm not going to give feedback to help this person because I want them to like me and I don't want to hurt their feelings. So almost too much, and finding that balance, which we talk about ways they can do that. It's just up to them to put that to practice. What is it, Malin, you were talking about will, skill, and the will. You give them the skill, they got to have the will.
Mm.
So I wouldn't say where they don't, where it breaks down. I mean, there are some that are that way, but more than anything, I see it's too much.
Yeah, Alice, and I have the opposite problem because I work with workforce development professionals. So we have what's very apparent across the entire organization is compassion fatigue. So these people work with clients over and over and over again, and they get jaded because they feel like the client, they work their case that they're managing, they're trying to like hack the system and get more money and all this other stuff. And so they get very jaded and that compassion fatigue sets in. And so when they meet with new clients, and new cases, then they are very negative and the humanity has left the building. So we're trying to incorporate those somatic stress releases into all of our trainings to train them to deal with that compassion fatigue.
Nice. So we have these two extremes, you know, and so the somewhere in there is this happy medium. And I would say that story plays a very big role in that happy medium. Aquila says when we are trying to give too much information in a short period. Yep. And so Aquila, that could be related to a time period, that could be related to the quality of the information. Like, is all of this necessary for training or not? You know, are we training them on observable actions, or we got, you know, all this other stuff that we're trying to, you know, fit into this time period? Often, when I have workshops, and I'm training a group of people, the content, I if it's a live situation, I'll design the activities first. I'll design the story, then I'll design the activities, then I'll be prepared to answer their solutions. And then if content is needed, I'll put it in. But content comes last in my process. And so that it keeps the learner up in the forefront rather than the content itself. And we're going to just discuss some strategies about how to do that subsequent sessions. Cool. Well, I'd like to start on this journey of the L&D process at the beginning. And so on your handout, you'll see our story here in the first column. And I'd like to take a moment to, let's see, we have less than 15 minutes, but let's talk about it in the main group then. How do we tell the L&D story before stakeholders even approach us? So think about your own L&D department. Does your L&D department, or if you're a one-person L&D department, do you have a story? And how do you tell that story to your stakeholders? How are you building relationships with current and potential stakeholders? So on that same Mentimeter, I'm going to advance the slide. And this time I will share. And if you wouldn't mind just sharing some of your answers, and if you still are having trouble accessing, you can put your answers in the chat. Answering those questions. How do we tell the L&D story before stakeholders even approach us? And how do we build relationships with current and potential stakeholders? So just take a moment to answer that. Okay. Wow, what an insightful first response. Okay, it is occurring to me that the absence of this is probably one of the root causes of the order taker perspective. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. We people will perceive us as they perceive us until we give them a reason not to. And this is one of the first things that we can do to shed that order taker status is proactively tell the story. And I have some suggestions on how to get that story going for you. And build relationships. And here's how some of you are doing it. We conducted roundtable sessions with our cross-section of learners. We developed a strategic plan based on those discussions. Okay, good. So that's good. I mean, that's more of a learner analysis. There are also going to be, I think that this is a great approach to how you develop a relationship with stakeholders as well. Stakeholders, subject matter experts, have a roundtable session. Develop a plan based on those discussions. Let them know up front, hey, we're here to solve problems. We're here to help you with your business problems. We know that you have pain. We want to help you with that pain. Here's how we can help you with that pain. Good. So one of you put at initial conversations, share scenarios I have come across and invite them to share what resonates, which gets them sharing information they would have overlooked. Wonderful. Yeah, so start with storytelling in the conversation. Good. And one of you chatted. It's fostering conversation and getting really curious to dig deep. Thank you, Allison. I also share personal stories and personal experience to help build my brand and relationships with my stakeholders. That is awesome. Yeah. Personal stories are a wonderful way to connect. If you don't know your stakeholders well, they don't know you well, start sharing some personal stories with them. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Okay, any other comments? Great. So I'd like for you to think about that. And next time, you guys are free to like kind of go through this poll as you wish to answer the rest of the questions. I knew that there would be absolutely no way we would get through the entire thing. If you don't do it now, that's okay. We'll be answering these questions later in future sessions. But let me give you a few, just some places to start with developing your L&D story and sharing it with stakeholders. So first of all, ask yourself, who are my stakeholders? Secondly, in general, what is their pain? Thirdly, what are they feeling? How do they feel? And fourthly, how can my department ease their pain and make them feel differently? And if you can develop a very short story that answers those questions, then you'll be able to share the L&D story from the perspective of your stakeholders. So you know, if right now on your L&D web home page and on the intranet site, it says, you know, we develop training solutions for, you know, for your business to help you achieve great outcomes. Like, they're going to already assume that you develop training. Don't need to tell them that. But as Anna says, tell a story from the stakeholder point of view. Yeah. And if you have groups of stakeholders that you need to tailor that story to, great. And then once you have that story, begin socializing it. You know, make an effort to meet with stakeholders or potential stakeholders, just to let them know, hey, we're here to help you, and make it very clear, like, you're there to help them with business outcomes, right? To solve problems, overcome root problems, and reach business outcomes. Training might be the vehicle by which you make that happen, but that's not your main goal. Your main goal is to give them, you know, be there for them as a business partner. Good. Good. Let's just go round robin. And one thing that you're going to take away from this session today, and if we don't mind starting with Rebecca, would you start us off?
Sure. I think one thing that I'm going to take away is this idea of storytelling from the stakeholders' point of view. We're kind of reconfiguring and reestablishing learning and development in our organization. And I think that's a good starting point for us, is to learn how to tell the story of what we can do for the business.
Beautiful. Malin.
I am actually really looking forward to our next session, because I would really love to see your process about designing the story, then the activities, and then if needed, content. That has me intrigued. What led me to instructional design was developing project-based learning. So I really like that format, and that's my takeaway, is I can't wait for the next one.
Yay. I'm gonna put a link in the chat. I just put it in there for you. It's a 30-minute movie, and it will describe the process in pretty good detail. So start with that. We might not get with the design to that design piece in the next session, but we will get to it, I promise. Thank you, Malin. Alan, are you still with us? Okay, I'm going to go on then to Anna.
So two things come to mind as my takeaway. Self-reflection. The process of self-reflection is extremely important before we get started. And as we self-reflect, we move on to these point of view explorations. Yes. So first from our shoes, and then you step into someone else's shoes.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's how I try to, like, so reflection is like necessary. We cannot do without it. So I'm so glad that you came away with that. Elisa, what about you?
Yes. I would say, hearing everybody, I feel storytelling requires time, and that tends, from my perspective, go against the quickness of the business. So I feel that I need to reflect on the time that I need to craft have the space for the story. And for that conversation, for that interaction, that dynamic, to listen, to speak, that requires time. That's what I reflected here.
Yeah. It does require time. Any kind of development requires time, even if storytelling isn't involved. And I can assure you that there is a storytelling process that is efficient and does keep pace with business. So stick around because we're going to be going into that. Yes, John.
Okay, yeah, time, that is very critical. I've been, when I'm an external consultant currently, but in the past, when I've been on staff, there was just so much pressure to grind out another one, grind out another one. We have more, but there is no time to stop and really do those focus groups, do the careful analysis, get to know. I got to know people, got to know SMEs through my work. I created the humanization through doing good work rather than taking people to lunch and having the conversations.
Yeah.
And speaking of time, I think we're running out of it.
Yes, we are. We're at the top, but I'm going to give our last two people a chance to. So if you need to go, that's fine, but I'm going to give my last two people a chance to say something. So Allison, you go first.
I'll just say it really quickly because I got to run. It reinforces the importance of storytelling. Like storytelling is what helps bring people together and resonate in terms of learning.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And Anne.
Yeah, so I'm taking away your 4-step framework to analyze my messaging, to review my messaging, because I think if I can make it short, snappy, and hit all those 4, I'd have a clearer message going out. So thank you for that.
Wonderful. Thank you all. The next Storytelling Advantage Tea Talk will be posted, the session will be posted in the general tab of the LearnOps, but our next poll will only appear in the Storytelling Advantage private community. So I'll try to reach out to each of you, link in with you, and the document. Yes, I'll put the document inside of the chat again, Adalisa. And we'll be using this document going forward as a point of reference as we go through this process. Awesome. Thank you all for spending some time with me today. I'll put the recording out there if you would like to come back and watch it. And I'll see you at the next Tea Talk with Rance. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Rance. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.